The Industrial Revolution by Valentina, Diana, Carlota, and Ariadna.
At first, what is it? It was a period in which were huge social and economic changes caused by the spread of the use of machinery in production. This began in Britain in the second half of the 18th century. There were two stages, the first revolution in 1760 and the second around 1870. In terms of demographic changes, population grew up because death rate decreased, while the birth rate increased. This was caused because nutrition improved, making more resistant the population, more hygiene, and Edward Jenner discovered a vaccine against smallpox. So this growth in the population produced an increasement on the demand of agricultural and industrial products. Now, focusing on the agricultural changes, new farming techniques were used, like the four-file system that consists in a divided land into four fields that alternates different crops. On the other hand, bourgeoisie bought the land in order to profit from selling. Other factors that favored the economic growth were the extensive markets that expand selling products in many colonies around the world, and to finish, the huge quantity of iron and coal that were necessary to build new factories.
Then, the Industrial Revolution. I'm going to start from the workshop to the factory products. Until 18th century, artisans used to make products by hand, working in small shops with simple tools. Later, in the same century in Britain, huge machines were invented for making products that had been previously manufactured to go quickly. The workshops were replaced by factories. But wait, first we are going to review what is a factory. Factories are very big buildings where workers operate the machines. Now yes, we can continue. First machines were mainly going to be powered by hydraulic energy, but James Watt invented the steam engine, so they become steam-powered, using coal as its energy source. The rise of factories made the industrial activities disposed in different places. As well, there were changes in manufacturing processes. Each worker specialized in a single task or production process. This is known as division of labor and was more productive because workers could produce more than artisans. Manufacturing products also decreased, causing the products' prices decrease as well. The textile industries. Cotton crops grown in Britain colonies providing cheap and abundant well-made materials to British textile industry. This was the first to introduce technical innovations in spinning and weaving. Britain textile production expanded when machines became steam-powered. And for ending the textile boom, which increased the activity in other sectors like agriculture or iron industry.
The transport also changed, having a transport revolution. There were a lot of advances in navigation. For example, the British industrial production grew fast. The factories received supplies and their products could be distributed thanks to the fast and safe transport. The rail travel was slow and dangerous before the 18th century, while after 1750 new roads were built and the old ones were buried, in comparison with the rail travel which is still cheaper and safer. Canals for transportation of high-volume cargo such as coal were constructed between 1770 and 1830. The use of a steam engine appeared. Steamboats were used for river travel while clipper seats for seas one. The railway appeared thanks to steam engine and iron. A steam-powered locomotive was used for transport coal between mines. The first cargo railway line was built in England in 1825, and the first public transport railway line was opened in 1830. Thanks to technical advance, the railway had a great impact on industrialization as it became fast, safe, and cheap, so it could promote mining by increasing the demand for coal consumption. They were built all over the world, and finally, they provide a cheap and efficient way of getting. This transport revolution had an impact in new means of transport. They became faster and safer, so they could carry bigger loads. This transport had a massive social and economic impact. Inside trade, the transport times and costs were reduced. This meant a greater stimulus toward trade and easier for people to travel. Focusing on the specialization in the world economy, the raw materials were provided by colonies to industrialized countries which were specialized in manufacturing and exporting products. The strengthened industries were the mining, metallurgy, and iron ones as they provided raw materials to build new means of transport. In the daily life, the food was transported in longer distance, so the nutrition improved, and an easier migration to a distant part of the world appeared.
Now, let's talk about the Second Industrial Revolution. During this revolution, that started in 1870, the international economy grew due to the new energy sources, like electricity, used to power electric railways in industry, transports, and forms of communication, and petroleum, used to power automobiles. It also grew due to the extension of industries. like the iron and steel industry, the chemical industry, and the electrical industry. When the Industrial Revolution began, most of the companies were small, so family business didn't earn enough. So capitals were divided in shares, and whoever buys them, they join the company as a shareholder. Banks were the key institutions. Individuals saved their money in banks, and banks invested it in industry. This was the birth of financial capitalism. In late 19th century, new systems of productions were formed. First, we have Taylorism, where each worker was specialized in a certain task. Then we have the assembly line, that consisted in products passing from one worker to another along an assembling line. Finally, we have mass productions, that consisted in large quantities of goods being produced cheaper.
Let's see the spread of this revolution. Mainly in Europe took place at the north and northwest, and in countries like Belgium or France, its development was more notable. Let's start with Belgium. This country benefited from natural resources, and the state supported the idea of the railway. The main industries in Belgium were textile, iron, and steel. The second country we are going to talk about is France. It didn't industrialize as much as Britain, because of two reasons: survival of many small farms and the slow population growth. And to finish, Sweden, that the most important industry was of iron. Leaving aside Europe, now USA, that was a great industrial power due to the next reasons. Number 1, the extensive agricultural production. 2, abundant natural resources like iron, coal, and petroleum. 3, specialized production. 4, large domestic market due to the railway. And the last reason is that technology led to innovate. The situation in Japan was a little bit difficult. While Japan was under Meiji during 1868 to 1912, the industrial age started. Technology was very important for industrialization. The state built industries and railway. In the late 19th century were formed corporations that were under family control that dominated. And just to finish, the most important industries were textile and heavy industry. In Russia began in the 19th century due to several factors. First, state invest in railway and heavy industry, foreign investment, and state protectionism.
We are going to continue with the effects of industrialization. The population growth. It starts growing very fast. Firstly, the death rate, which was decreasing due to the improvements of food supply and public hygiene, and the medical advances. That an example are the numerous hospitals that were built. As this happens, also the birth rate was increasing in most Europe until 1870s, where many people improved in a lot of economic aspects as a result of the Industrial Revolution, so they got married younger and they had more children, all in age of migration. The Industrial Revolution caused the farm work to become mechanized and the cities to be the center of production. Peasants began migrating to other cities searching for jobs. This led to urbanization. At 1800, the 10% of the population lives in cities, but later the percent of people increased to 40%. But as this was happening, 60 million of Europeans had to move to other continents because cities weren't able to absorb all the rural population. For this reason, migration was divided into different transoceanic phases. First, British and European people who migrated especially to USA as Canada, Brazil, and Argentina. And secondly, Italian, Spanish, Greek, and Turkey immigrants.
Now, the class system. It was divided in 3 states: the upper class, the middle class, and the lower class. The upper class was formed by the aristocracy, the high bourgeoisie, and the bourgeoisie. The high bourgeoisie was formed by industrialists and bankers, and the bourgeoisie was formed by businessmen, high officials, and lawyers. Secondly, we have the middle class, formed by the petite bourgeoisie, that included tradesmen, shopkeepers, artisans, teachers, mid-level officials, and army officers. Finally, we have the lower class, formed by peasants, proletariat, and house servants.
Talking about labor movement, we have the early labor movements, the Marxism and Anarchism, and the Workers' International. Workers first organized themselves into groups with the intention of pressuring factory owners and government in Britain, where the Industrial Revolution began. These labor movements were Ludism, in which new technologies made skilled workers lose their in the steel industry. These workers responded by destroying factory machines. This developed into the Ludite movement. Practicing between 1838 and 1848, it was the first organized labor movement with political rights. It has millions supported and presented its people chartered to the British Parliament. And finally, the trade unions, in which workers formed mutual aid societies to help in needs and in employment. It appeared in Great Britain in 1824. Trade unions demanded better salaries, shorter work days, and an end to child labor. Its main oppressors were the strikes that consisted of workers refusing to work until certain demands of these ones were met. The founder of Marxism was Karl Marx, who published Communist Manifesto in 1848 with Friedrich Engels. According to Marxism, there was a class struggle between oppressor and the oppressed in industrial societies. The oppressors were the bourgeois. Why? Because they owned the means of production and exploited workers for profit, who were the oppressed as they sold their only position, which was the labor. Marx proposed a revolution to destroy capitalism and give power to workers. This revolution had a first stage of proletarian dictatorship to control society, and then a communist society without social classes or private property. He believed that labor parties and trade unions participate in politics, so as a consequence, Socialist Party appeared in 1875. The founders of anarchism were Pierre de Joseph Proudhon and Mikhail Bakunin. Anarchism opposed the state and wanted to replace it with voluntary association. It believed in collective use of property and rejected political parties and elections. Its revolutionary instruments were the trade unions and strikes. Now let's see the Workers' International. The first one was called the First International Working Men Association in 1864, created by labor organization. Because of disagreement between socialists and anarchists, it disappeared. The second one, or Socialist International, was founded by a socialist leader in 1889. Its function was to coordinate Marxist labor organization. The International Workers' Day is a well-known labor symbol created by this organization.